Hello! Welcome to the Mind Buffs podcast. I am your host, Matt Demoissac, and we are with none other than Shauna Schuster.
Oh, hello. It's good to see everybody again.
We're going to continue our conversation on appreciation. And just as a warning, Shauna and I are both feeling a little extra spicy today. And so we may be a little bit more unfiltered. We may be a little bit more direct and sharing specific examples of experiences that we've had personally in different jobs or from other businesses that we have worked with, and hopefully kind of giving a before and after of what to do and what not to do. But I really want to talk about communication and how much communication you need to have with people on your team in order for people to actually feel like they're important and you give a damn about them. So we're going to let Shauna just kind of introduce where we're going to be going with this conversation. But yeah, this is really important because when stress increases at work, if it's your busy season or you've got some personal things going on at home, or it's just a stressful time and everyone's kind of feeling it, that's where culture of appreciation matters the most. Anyone can be really nice and supportive and communicate when there's no stress at work and when you're feeling no stress. But it's when things become heated and there's more pressure that we see all of these things kind of disappear and fall by the wayside. So we're talking about how you can maintain this culture of appreciation through the worst of times, through the most difficult of times. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah. I guess to put it in context, even for us, did we plan to record this on a day we felt spicy? No. But does it work out that way? Yes, it does. And to put it in context, even though we talk a lot about culture of appreciation and the things we do here and how we keep people feeling valued and stuff, people have personal lives and maybe other jobs and other responsibilities and stuff. And when those things all hit the fan at the same time, this tends to be when things start to crumble, and by no poor intention. I actually think that's one thing that we need to really make sure we make a point of, is that we don't think you or your employees or whoever you're working for is crumbling these ideas on purpose. It's usually just you get so much on your plate that, you remove the one-on-ones, or you're like, oh, we just have to take a little break from our check-ins, or I don't really have time to say hello or eat lunch with everybody today. And you just have to watch when that starts to spiral. For context to listeners and stuff, it's the first day of school. We're getting ready for many seasons of different sports to start. We're prepping all sorts of contracts. We're recording podcasts. We're doing this. I'm finishing up at another contract that I was on. And I woke up today and was like, let's just burn this whole place to the ground.
Yeah.
And so I don't necessarily, again, mean that in a bad way. It's just you get in those moods. And it's nice to come into a place where it's just hey, I see you and I hear your mood. And not only do I see and hear it, but also I get it, right? And let's acknowledge it instead of just trying to shove all your feelings down and just get through the day.
Yeah, as a leader, one of the things that I usually get really strange looks from my clients from is when I tell them, you should tell your team when you're feeling like crap. You should tell your team when there's a lot of stress happening in your personal life. You should tell your team that you don't have the bandwidth that you normally have. Because if you don't tell them that, your team will expect the same type of performance and communication and ability to just let stress just roll right off your back. But you don't have that capacity. So you need to communicate to your team as the leader also that you have a limited bandwidth, and everyone changes their level of expectation. And there is an unnecessary conflict that happens because of misassumptions or misjudgment of what they can expect from you. So just keeping all of that in mind, what we want to kind of start off with is sharing research from the Gottman Institute, actually. And for those of you that don't know what the Gottman Institute is, they are the aforementioned experts globally when it comes to relationship. No one has done more research on relationships than the Gottman. No one has more theories and amazing infographics to really highlight practical ways to improve relationships than the Gottman Institute. And the reason why we're bringing this in is communication is the most important in a committed relationship. As soon as communication lapses or there's some hostility in that kind of communication, then the relationship falls apart. We want to be able to model work relationships and communication to the same as when an intimate relationship is at its most safely vulnerable and intimate, when the communication is the most kind of fluid, like there's a flow state between the two people. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to use something called 6 hours to a better relationship. And you might already be like, what? Like 6 hours of communication a week with my partner, but I've got 3 kids and I work 50 hours a week. And then I've got all these other, this is the minimum. This is the goal to get to with your partner in a week, is, do I have 6 hours of like devoted, committed contact and communication with my partner? And then we're going to translate that into what that looks like in a work setting.
And truthfully, as we're going through this, I said, I don't know if people are going to think they have time for this. And we kind of touched on that. And so we'll get there too. But it's just similar to the way we talked about the like love languages and then like work appreciation last time, in that, you know, these are different types of relationships. So we need to treat them as such. I know some of the people might just be like, well, I just need my employees to go to work and get their work done and come back and stuff. And great. It's just, that's not a culture of appreciation. And so we just kind of acknowledge and build on that.
Yeah.
So we just take them. We've got them up here.
100%.
Let's just jump into it. So we have partings, which we talked about as like your goodbyes. And I laughed when you said this one out loud because I was like, oh, this is probably not me. But basically it's to make an effort when you're like separating, saying goodbye from your partner in a relationship. And it should be 10 minutes a week. So that's 2 minutes a day for 5 working days. I gotta tell you, it does not take me 2 minutes to say goodbye to anyone. I love an Irish goodbye. So
hell yeah.
I think that one's funny, but correct, because especially when I'll talk about it both with my partner and then at work as well. But like when I'm wrapping up my day and taking our daughter to school and doing those kinds of things, my focus is usually with the kid, right? Like your focus is elsewhere, and that's totally fine. But saying goodbye when she's not there is different. Yeah. And you take the time and you like pet your dog and you like check in about when you'll be home. And at work, it's really similar. Oh, like, are you in tomorrow? Or are you going to be at this meeting? And you just do your little check-in. And 2 minutes can sound long, but it goes really fast.
Like my business partner and I, Alex, we always let each other know every day if at the end of our work day, whether that is at the end of all the meetings that we have for the day or the end of when we finish seeing all of our clients, if we are going to be around or if we have to bolt.
Yes.
So that way at least we have the expectation that we have 0 seconds to be able to check in or check out with each other at the end of the day. And so like, again, she's letting me know, I'm letting her know that we can adjust accordingly. But just spending a few moments saying goodbye is letting that person know like, hey, I acknowledged your existence today.
You were here.
You were here. I saw you. Thanks for being here. Like it's so small and it can be taken for granted, but it's just that little human interaction and be like, hey, like I saw you today. I'm looking forward to seeing you tomorrow. Like,
yes.
Peace.
I broke down some of the tools we were going through, like day-to-day, monthly, and then like yearly / long-term. And saying goodbye is one I put. Obviously day to day. Now, if you're running late and you have things to do, people understand, hey, I have to go. But it is nice, especially if you have to walk out past like a front desk. Like you could say goodbye to our nice person who's been answering phones all day, or just like acknowledge the people that were there. It goes a long way to just be like, hey, I see you're still here. You're going. Then just go home. It's okay.
Yeah. Totally.
It's been a big one. The other one that made me laugh was reunions, because if I don't do partings, I do not do reunions. And so this is when you see your partner, like that person in the relationship again, and you want to like share time to reconnect. And the recommendation is 1 hour and 40 minutes a week. And that's not what I do either. So this was fun to go through because I was like, we can also be better. But so it's basically 20 minutes a day, 5 working days a week. Now I know what you're all thinking. Okay, like, sure, yeah, I'll talk to my partner when I get home. But like, I do not have 20 minutes to say hello to every employee every single day. I understand that. But also, do you have some time to check in and ask how their weekend was on a Monday? Like, do you check in with them when you see them at lunch and ask, is their dog feeling better? Or how have things been? Like, it's not like you have to be like, okay, Matt, you're here. Like, let me just set my 20-minute timer.
Yeah.
What would you like to reunite and discuss?
That also feels horrible when you know that the person checking in with you is just ticking a box, like, this is what I'm supposed to do to be a good husband. This is what I'm supposed to do to be a good boss. It's like, there needs to be a genuine feeling of like, oh, okay, they want to check in and see how I'm doing. And again, like, we're not saying that you have to spend 20 minutes at the start of the day to check in with people.
No.
This is, think in terms of a work setting, think about more like 20 minutes throughout the workday where you're just spending time with that person on your team, or even just like a colleague or coworker. It's just that non-work time where you're building relationships. And the long-term benefit of this for you as a leader is that, like, they have skin in the game. They have people at work that they know care about them, that check in with them, that maybe over time, if you're this kind of leader, that you want to be able to talk about the difficult things and have them share what's going on in their personal life. But this reunion check-in, as it's called with this Gottman here, is just that intentional time to check in with the human element of, hey, great to see you today. What's going on with family, with the kids? Like, did you play, men's league last night? Like, what's going on? But yeah, it's an hour and 40 minutes a week in a personal relationship.
And it can feel like, when I look at that, oh, it's only an hour 40, or it can also feel like, oh my God, I do not have an hour 40.
Yeah.
Both of those things can be true also week to week. Like, this week at our house is just, for lack of a better term, just a complete shit show, truly. And everybody's got to get ready for school and we're not ready. And that's okay. But then that time can shift, right? So we'll have more time once the weekend hits and stuff to like adjust and connect. But also when you're at the workplace, I was working from a different office than usual. And it was like a bullpen style because I was just doing like administration stuff. And I don't even work for that company. And I definitely got at least 20 minutes with almost everyone around, just being like, hey, Shauna, like, haven't seen you in a while. It's good to see you. Or go to the kitchen and I brought donuts to thank them for letting me steal their desk for the day. Yeah. And you just get those kind of check-ins. It's not a timer. It's just intentionality.
Yeah. I mean, just think of how many, maybe you have or have not, but fights with your partner where one of you has said, like, I'm tired of feeling like the maid, or like, I'm tired of feeling like the servant. I'm tired of feeling like I'm the cleanup crew. That's because there was too much time in between conversations where appreciation was shown. Hey, I know that 6 months ago we talked about how this was going to fall under your roles and expectations, like, for the way that our schedule is lined up, but it's just letting you know, like, I still really appreciate that you're doing this.
Yeah.
If you don't have that conversation, you will feel like the maidservant.
Yeah, we've all been there. Even at the office when it's like, I remember one of our clinicians was leaving before me and like just came in and was like, hey, do you want me to like shut down the office since your last client's virtual, or do you want me to just kind of leave it? And I was like, if you could like turn off the sound machines and like lights, that would like be so wonderful. And they did the whole thing, and like just send them a message and just be like, great. It was kind of a reunite then when we see each other, and the next day to be like, hey, that made it so I could get out like really easy. Yeah. This is like a different kind of article, but same idea. But when we're talking about organizational commitment, emotions of employees matter, and we want them to feel attached to your company and to you. And that's one way to show it. The other one is like a continuance of commitment. So that's going to be like, how much does that person believe that you're bought in and they want to stay and should stay? And those check-ins are really good for those because it shows that you treat them as a person. Yeah. And then the next one's like normative commitment, which is the extent to which the employee is loyal to you and is like obligated to you because they're a person to you. They're not just, your receptionist, or they're not just your salesperson, or they're not something they belong, right? And the 20 minutes, if that's going to make the difference between you having to replace an employee or them feeling connected to where you are, that's not much time to put in when you do it intentionally and like not to just check a box.
Yeah, like loyalty, two things I want to say. Loyalty is not a one-way street.
No.
Like as the business owner or as the manager or supervisor, and you expecting loyalty and not doing the little things that actually show that you give a damn about them, like who the hell are you? Like what do you expect from your team when you demand loyalty and you're not showing anything in return? Giving them money is not loyalty. Paying them, giving them a paycheck, giving them raises, that feels cool for like a few moments. That is not, you owe me. I pay you, therefore you owe me. That doesn't work anymore. In fact, it never worked. It was just the status quo for decades in like corporate America. And then we just adopted it here in Canada.
Well, we want to know why I'm so spicy today. Like, let's do that one.
Yeah.
Because the fact that you're paying me to do a job, and check yourself on this one, and employees check yourself as well. Are you paying your person to do their job? Are you paying them to like be part of a team and get things done? Or are you paying them for 40 hours a week? Those things are not the same. If I can get my job done quickly and do other tasks or whatever, and I get it done, you're paying me to do my job. If you're paying me to work 40 hours a week, that's fine. But if I'm done my job before 40 hours, just know you're paying me to scroll on TikTok, because if you're not showing me that back-to-back appreciation, why would I take on more work?
Totally.
What would be the benefit? Oh, well, we'll pay you more. Will you though? Because like clearly we're already paying you for 40 hours and you're not filling those 40 hours. Just like if they're doing their job, acknowledge it. Like, I could go off about that.
I know. It's hard not to go off into
but
tangents today.
It goes into this one like really, really nicely. So I'll just pause myself. But because it goes into appreciation and admiration. And these things can be done very surface level or very, very well and intentionally. And we talked about it a bit last time about like truly everybody has a strength and can you find it? So this is using admiration to like record something small or something you notice, like using positive traits in your employees and like actively acknowledging them and focusing on them instead of just pointing out errors or areas that need growth. And we talk about this in sport all the time about if you're a killer defenseman, like maybe you don't need to spend your entire practice working on your shot because that's not the strength you have on the ice. And it's the same in an office and in a relationship, right?
Yeah. And again, the Gottman recommends 35 minutes a week spent on admiration and appreciation of, again, your intimate partner.
Yeah.
But that just shows like if you really want to have the kind of relationship with your employees that they feel committed and that you're committed to them and you want them to stay with you forever, you need to put this kind of effort or at least hire the right leaders, the right managers who can provide that type of quality and relationship to your team.
It's 5 minutes a day, 7 days a week. Like that's not much, especially if you have the right leaders to do it, because then the appreciation and admiration not only becomes part of the day-to-day, but is not an additional task. Like you're not taking time out to be like, okay, let's like have a 5-minute meeting every day to go over this. It's part of your daily conversations, right?
Yeah.
This one gets forgotten sometimes to employees who are quite independent, I've found. It's almost like, especially in places where you maybe work in a lot of different places or you're not all together in one office, because it's assumed, and I've been bad for this too, so I can't pretend I haven't, but you just assume everything's good because you don't hear anything bad. That's great that you're not hearing anything bad, but also customers and clients are usually less likely to call if they have a good experience than if they have a bad experience. So it's still important to show those independent people appreciation and admiration, even if you're not with them all the time.
Yeah. The next one I wanted to share was, and this should be no surprise to anyone who's in a relationship, you should be scheduling a date night a week. I know if you have kids, you're like, well, we haven't had a freaking date night
I
in like
don't know what that means.
6 months. Like, what are you talking about? Well, what's the quality of your relationship like right now? So you are bringing the kids to school. You are driving them to their sports. You guys are able to, have your family dinner. All the kids are all perfectly taken care of. How's the marriage? How's the relationship? Like, how are you actually doing? What's the health of the relationship like? Because if you don't have a date night set apart at least every 2 weeks, you guys are just taking care of business. You're ticking boxes. You're taking care of everyone. But the most important thing that models to your kids how you want them to grow up in life and what values and character traits you want to be able to like showcase to your kids. So we're not telling you as a business owner to date your employees.
In fact, don't.
Do not do that. But this is where we wanted to kind of translate this into one-on-ones.
Yeah.
Okay? So one-on-ones are one of the most common, I guess, frequent question I think that we get when we're doing either like workshops or like, well, how do we do one-on-ones, or how do we squeeze time in for one-on-ones, or just my clients, my personal clients, like how can I actually make these effective and not feel like a waste of time?
Yeah.
Really great questions. That would take several episodes. So we're just going to like spend a little bit of time on this, but one-on-ones matter. And not to like out people on my team, but I would say 80% of the time when we do one-on-ones with their team members, there are tears. No cap.
Yeah,
as
that's
the kids
fact.
say. Okay.
That's a fact.
It is like, it's a vulnerable experience, and it's not just a box to tick as the owner or as the supervisor to be like, I'm asking these questions. Here are some scaling questions to check on how you're doing. It's like, no, like be a real human being in that room and actually find out, hey, how are you doing? I've noticed this. I've noticed that. I've noticed that your doors close a bit more. I've noticed that you're not talking as much. I've noticed that you're staying later at work, or that it takes you longer to do projects. What's going on there?
Yeah. The I noticed parts, personally, are the worst, but in the best way. Because they're the worst because you're like, oh my gosh, I thought I was masking so well. You're not, just to be clear. But also because it's that moment where it's just like, kind of like, for me and ours have sometimes felt like that chest punch, but again, in a good way, where it's just like, oh, I kind of thought it was just me, or these things could go on. And not only I noticed this, but it's not like, Shauna, I noticed this and we need to make sure that you're working on this.
Yeah.
I noticed this and check in on the person. And those are the differences. And to put it in perspective, I've had quite the 2 weeks, and we've had quite a rough couple weeks here. I'm not going to cry about it on a podcast, but probably when we're done again. And just a lot of things have gone on, both interpersonally in like our own lives, and we've lost one of our very important people. And at my contracted position, they at no point checked in on me, but there's a point where it's like, I'm taking these extra days. Now they're to attend a funeral and to process these things. And I ask for help. And the help is not given. And again, everybody's plates are full. So I'm actually pretty logical on that. Some people might be more emotionally attached to that. That's not my style. I'm like, oh, everybody's got full plates. I understand. I know these things will get done because I know in a couple days I'll be feeling good and the ADHD superpower will kick in and I will power through everything. But the email I get about it is like, hey, we see this. This needs to be done by end of day. And I went into just a manic, angry state. And again, just like I had quite the email drafted. So I always recommend have someone read your email before you send it, because someone read it and was like, yeah, that's not a good idea. So I deleted it and I did not send it.
Yeah.
And I've regulated since then and stuff. But in that moment, I was so upset because of a few things. It's assuming I don't have my eye on these things, which I do. Anything that actually needed to be done is completed. It's also assuming that I'm unaware of these things. And again, I'm not. And it's also assuming that your employee lives in a little business bubble, which they do not. So if you approach it that way, you're going to get the sassy email probably if that person doesn't ask someone to read it first. Or when it was approached here, it was almost the exact opposite, because someone still checks in and literally says like, hey, are you okay? We've seen, an email takes a little longer to reply to, or your door is closed a little bit more. Just checking in if you're doing all right. It's the same situation. It's similarly it's still addressed, but the way you address it is such a game changer, because then I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm okay. I need the day. And then suddenly it's understood instead of like, hey, I'm begging for your help or understanding, and it's pointed out the work. So, am I extra spicy today? Would I debate calling them out by name? Yeah, I would. Am I going to do that? No, right? But if your employees are a little bit higher on like an emotional reactive side, just know they might say it, or they might send it, or that might be their reason to just be like, you know what, we're done here.
Totally. Yeah. The one thing I wanted to add as the business owner, for those of you that conduct the one-on-ones or check in with your team members, we've had podcasts on this before around the concept of power differentials. It's really important to understand just the power that you have in those situations where you're delivering the one-on-one as the leader. And something that I've learned over the years is, even if everything feels fine and the relationship seems like it's really great and both people get along and things are going well, there's like always this part of an employee that is like, I hope they don't fire me.
Yeah, that never goes away. Do I think I'm going to be fired? No. Do I still get stressed when we have one-on-one meetings booked? Absolutely, I do.
Yeah. And we do our best to be like, hey, we just do one-on-ones with everyone. This is the time of the year. It's not because like something bad's happened. It doesn't really matter like that.
It's irrelevant to me that they're literally doing them back to back for a full day. It does not matter. My brain is still like, And not to mention, we are so, like, we're friends, we're chill. I play sports with that. Like, this is not, like, they're not terrifying people, but it's still there. So, accidentally, sometimes boss, I think, can forget they're the boss.
And so something that I've had to remind myself is to just let my team know, like, hey, you're in our forever plans. Like, we love you. We don't want you to go anywhere. We want to invest in you. And, it might not mean that like I have the finances or the revenue to like invest in you the way that you deserve right now, because we're in a low, like, have those honest conversations. But just kind of be aware that in those one-on-ones, there's a huge power differential. And then at least one or both people are afraid for various reasons. But let's continue on.
I think that's a good one. And those all come down to that like date night, not date night idea, but just like actually check in and hope they're like doing well. We'll pop on like affection, which one always makes me laugh. Make sure you embrace each other. Think of the moments of affection in a way like to let go of minor stresses. Do not go embracing and kissing all of your employees to do this, especially not 35 minutes a week, 5 minutes, 7 days. But again, this comes down to when we talked about like kind of the love languages at work thing last time. Like, if you know that someone in your office is a hugger, like, it is okay to be like, oh yeah, you know her, she's just a hugger. Or if someone is not, please don't ruin their whole day by doing that. But there are lots of ways to show affection that we like touched on last time too. So if you're not sure, like, go back to that episode because we talked about different ways to address it.
I definitely am going to out someone when Shauna and I were prepping for today's episode and we were going over this theory and talking about affection. Our podcast producer over in the corner there, hey, what's up, Cam?
Yep.
He was just like, what? 35 minutes a week? God, that's a lot. So if you're
and then simultaneously he goes, do you think that's getting lower? I'm like, yes.
Obviously, with social media and things that are providing immediate dopamine that don't feel scary, because sometimes cuddling with your partner can feel scary if things have been tense in the relationship as of late. And there's a smirk.
What? The beginning of school and everything? Isn't it like thriving times for most people?
100%.
Can't imagine.
I know that for those of you that maybe didn't have warm and cuddly parents and therefore don't feel very warm and cuddly yourself, you're like, that's never going to happen. 35 minutes. Well, what does your partner need? What's the number in between that? And I know I keep looking over at you, Cam, but like I'm just, it's just a brain thing. I'm not calling you out like you need to figure your shit out.
He's absolutely calling you out. Don't listen to him.
But yeah, this is one of the most common conversations that always comes up even in couples therapy is like, I want more touch. Like, I think it's too much touch. There's never going to be a number that's like both people are getting exactly the amount of touch that they want. It's something that has to be negotiated. But yeah, it's not about physical affection in a workplace. I just wanted to share this from a relationship perspective.
Totally.
But yeah, affection just is warmth, right? It's just like intentional time. So
yeah. And if you don't know, either at work or with your partner, again, this is one of those moments where I'm like, be vulnerable. Just ask, how do I show you that I appreciate you? Goes a long way. The last one is one I actually finally can add that I'm good at. So we call this one the State of the Union meeting. So this is about an hour a week of just discussing concerns and things going on and like feeling heard and expressing things. And I was telling you, I have basically a State of the Union meeting in my calendar on Sunday evenings at our house to get everybody on the same page and to like do check-ins. We did that because we were not doing that, right? And so when you're starting your week and everything's crazy and you don't know logistical things that are going on, but you also don't know like how the other person actually coped through the whole thing. It's a no TV, no TikTok time where you just are together and dialing in. And an hour a week, if you have one partner, is not too bad. But an hour a week, if you have 65 employees, a little obviously less manageable. So
definitely a few things popped in my mind with that one. Depending on what research you do read, in terms of how the Gottman kind of got to this number of 1 hour a week of State of the Union, it actually shows between 1 and 2 hours a week. So this is going to be dependent on probably just the state of your current relationship and how busy things are or how many kids you have or things like that. So it is potentially up to 2 hours a week of just straight up scheduling and organization of the week so that everyone's on the same page. In a work setting, this can be done more as a team. So like a meeting with the team, at least 1 hour a week to go over like expectations and plans and goals for the week or things like that. In terms of like one-on-one, like they can just be small moments. Just check in enough that both people are on the same page. Sometimes that's 30 seconds. Sometimes that's 30 minutes. You do not need 3, 4, 5, 6 hours of meetings in a week.
Oh my God, please don't do that. And like you're going to be tired. Nobody's going to hear anything you say. Nothing makes me more angry than when I get off of not our teams, but the other teams, like bi-weekly, I guess. So we do it bi-weekly, 2 hours or so. It's always more than 2 hours. And nobody's remembered anything that's happened because you went on too long and they had 47 other things to do and meetings to attend.
Yeah. And she's really just talking about public speaking skills at that point as well. If you're not good at it, then please improve those skills because that should be mandatory as a leader that you have those skills. But yeah, with the meetings, just you don't need that much. And I'm quoting Jeff Bezos. I quote all kinds of business leaders all the time. It doesn't mean that I'm like a super fan that like they're like the absolute best, but like anyone who's gotten to a level of success has stumbled across either intentionally or unintentionally something that is really important for the success of a business being able to grow. And one of the things that he was really intentional about early on in his business was that meetings were like short and to the point, that everyone had the same content given to them in an email before the meeting, and that the meeting was shared in terms of who's talking at the meeting. Having a singular voice will get old all of the time. So just kind of changing that voice around. But yeah, he's had some really cool comments and podcasts and articles in terms of how he approaches the utility of meetings and how to get the most out of it by not spending too much time on it. Just interesting stuff that he's talked about with that.
I am not a project manager, but like a level 10 meeting template goes a long way. And if you don't know what that is, please Google it. And if you need some more information, it's basically like, here it is, here's who's here, and then who's doing what, and like action items at the end. And it's like a shared doc. Most people put it on like Google Docs or Teams, anything that you can kind of all see it. It's all in one spot. And then you can also add to it throughout the week so that next time you're going in, it's not just everybody kind of floating ideas. It puts it to a structure. And then do your best. It's not always possible, but to just kind of keep on that meeting schedule, especially if you're the leadership of that team. You probably have 25 other meetings to do that week. And so you don't want to be in them for that long. And if that means you have to work on prioritizing, it means you have to work on prioritizing. It's just showing an appreciation for your employees and your time.
Totally. The last comment I want to make, because I know there's going to be people listening to this being like, well, that's not going to happen. That's impossible. I have way too much of my own work to then spend that much time with my team. You are most likely right.
You are correct.
And that's a conversation that you need to have with your superior to be like, I'm not doing the job that you hired me to do because I have too many projects, too many things. God, there's just so much I want to say about this. But in short, as the leader, as the manager, if you are cutting your communication with, let's say, your 12 team members down so that you can prioritize your individual tasks or the tasks that your boss expects you to do, your workload in comparison to your 12 team members' workload is nothing. Nothing is more important than ensuring that you are spending the right amount of communication and intentional time with your 12 team members so that they are effective and efficient with their time than your measly one-person pile of work. And this is the dilemma that we see all the time with managers and supervisors, is that they're hired into a position where they're supposed to manage a team, but then expected to almost do the exact same amount of work on their individual caseload. Yeah. So this is a typical systemic issue within corporation, within business. But have a conversation with your boss if you feel bold enough to be like, listen, our team is suffering because I am supposed to do all of this work myself individually, but I'm not doing my job effectively to make sure that our team is thriving. And then you're taking it out on me, or you're taking it out on the team, but it's the system's fault. It is the expectation's fault. So I just wanted to say that this needs multiple episodes to talk about at length, but it is way more important to prioritize time with your team than you finishing your individual workload. Try to communicate that with your boss.
Yeah. I think I was just like scribbling things down as you're going, but I think that that's where we'll jump to next, is that like leaders versus managers, and like how to communicate when those kinds of leadership-y things are, I don't want to say being dropped because it's not like it's on purpose, but like having to be set aside, because I think that'll be that's huge. Yeah.
I don't want listeners to feel like you're failing epically in your committed relationship or your work, but I hope that this is a call to action and realizing that based on what the data and the research is showing, that most of us are falling short in our personal relationships and at work in terms of how much communication we spend versus doing our own little thing and having our own little adventure, thinking that we're being really productive and effective. We have to ensure that we are a part of the team and the team feels like they're actually a part of said team. So looking forward to having episode number 3 on culture of appreciation. And as always, message us, comments, email us. We love to talk about things that you feel like are pertinent to what you're experiencing as well. But
thank you. I can't wait to jump back into the next one.
I know, I'm excited. Okay. Thanks so much for paying attention to us and listening and following. Please click the like button and subscribe. We appreciate it. And we will see you next time.
Thank you.